videos you've seen where I've talked about reproducing this neck for a friend and he wants it narrower. This is 1 3/4, he wants 1 1/2. I've already made the neck blank for it. It's about a 1 3/4 thick. That's going to enable me to get the entire angle on here. I've made a template for this neck. I need to make another one that's narrower here. The headstock's also going to be narrower. One of the things I need to figure out though is what truss rod goes in here. And it's going to be different, so I'm probably going to have, it's going to come out at the headstock. It's not going to be like the one in the fender necks I did. I'm sure there's going to be some differences that I'll have to accommodate for. This angle. Now this has a scarf joint on it, and the new one I'm going to make, I'm going to lessen the angle and not use the scarf joint. I've got nothing against scarf joints. I just think that this will be easier in the long run if I keep making necks with a tilt back head. I've never made these kind of necks where the truss rod comes out at the head. Now, the previous neck I have made, the fender, and I've used these that are 18 inches long. They come to about there. Using that on here, of course, I'm coming out from the head, puts it right down here at the very end. I had no idea how long these truss rods were in here, where they ended. Well, I found out that the frets are not magnetic, but the truss rod is. So I used this magnet on a stick, dragged it along until it wouldn't go anymore. There's where it quits, right there. And on this neck, quits right here at this dot. The truss rod starts right about here in this one. And if it goes to that fret, that's right at 22 inches. This one, the truss rod starts right there. That is 16 3/8. I started looking around and I found these at Bitterroot Guitars. That is just about the perfect length. Maybe just a little longer than the one that's in there, but it'll work. And the one for the bass, this is 22 inches. It comes to the same place. This has been a job. How do we do it? Why do we do it? Well, because we love it. So in these new neck blank I was making with the slant back head, it needed a different kind of truss rod than I was using in the fender style necks. I needed to come up with something else because this original jig I made for doing the fender necks wasn't going to work with these larger blanks. I came up with the idea of trying to come up with something like a pin router. So I made this template that has the slot for the truss rod in it, and there's a pin in the bottom of this box I made. The neck mounted on there, your router's mounted over top, and you would just adjust the router down as you worked it back and forth, and you get that slot. And that is how I did this bass neck. But I decided I didn't care for that too well, so I'm going to make something similar to this fender jig I made, but for these bigger neck blanks. Here's the pin I had in the bottom of the box here. Well, since I'm changing the way I do it, and I'm not going to use this, it was going to be too deep for the router to reach all the way down to this blank. So I made a filler. It's got a hole in the middle that fits right over the pin. Fits right in here. There we go. So even the guitar neck is going to be the same in this area. It's just going to be longer as we go down the neck. So I found out where I wanted where the fretboard ends and the nut is, and I've marked it on this neck. Found out where I want that to be. So with the bass neck already being done, I'm going to change the method I do it. Here's the one for the guitar. I'm going to put it in here, line up to that line. So I've put these screws and these blocks in here to hold the neck. for adjustments. And I made a piece of wood that fits perfectly in between there with a center line. And you take the center line of the blank and line it up with that line here and down here. Also added hold downs, one on both ends. How do we do it? Why do we do it? Every day. Every time you start to do something, you find out that something's in the way. This hold down that I was going to put right here ended up being in the way of the router base. And this one had to be moved down farther out of the way. Let's make a smaller one here. It's always something when you're creating. Now, you have to put stops. This is for the guitar. It's going to have to stop right here. So I'm going to put a stop here and here. I've already got a stop on the other end, but there's going to be a series of stops because there's going to be a slot for the wrench to go in, then move it over. There'll be a slot for the adjusting nut area, this wider part right here, and then a 1/4 inch all the way down to here. I've got it centered and locked down that way. I've got the end of the fretboard lined up. I've got that locked down on that end and this one on this end. I think I'm ready to make my first slot. And I'm going to work just here, this slot. So I got a stop here for the router base and a stop here for the router base. I've got a 3/8 rounded over bit in here, and I'm going to go to a 3/8 depth. Looks good. Needs to go deeper. Well, that one turned out real nice. Now I need to move these stops over to the red lines and get this next slot. I've got these 2 slots done to the proper depth. Now a 1/4 inch. Move the stops once again. I've made a couple passes already. The truss rod fits in there real nice. Not quite deep enough. I think I got about 60 thousandths yet to go. So there it is. The truss rod fits really good. The only thing left to do is to drill a hole through to the other side to get the wrench through. And it works. I think this is a good place to stop. Making this jig to do these truss rods turned out to be a little more involved than I thought. I still got my jig to do fender necks. Now I can do bass and guitar necks that are thicker with this tilt back head. So be sure you subscribe, come back, like, and watch a lot.
Marvelous.